Sarah smiled, a picture of contentment, as she looked at her husband, Mark. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple. Married for 10 years, living in a charming suburban house with a white picket fence. But behind closed doors, a storm was brewing, one that Mark was completely oblivious to. Sarah had been feeling a growing sense of dissatisfaction. The predictability of their life, once a comfort, now felt like a cage. She craved excitement. A spark she felt had long since fizzled out with Mark. That's when David entered the picture. He was a new colleague at her firm, charismatic, ambitious, and everything Mark wasn't. Their casual work lunches soon turned into clandestine meetings. The thrill of the forbidden was intoxicating, and Sarah found herself falling deeper into a web of deceit. She convinced herself that this was what she deserved, that her happiness was paramount. Mark, bless his trusting heart, noticed nothing. He'd come home from his steady, if unspectacular job as a librarian, and ask about her day, his eyes full of the same love they'd held since they were college sweethearts. The guilt was a dull ache, but the allure of David was a sharp, irresistible pull. One evening, after a particularly passionate encounter with David, Sarah came home and knew she couldn't live the lie any longer. She found Mark in the living room reading a book, a small smile on his face. The sight of his calm demeanor, his utter unawareness, sent a jolt of cruel resolve through her. "Mark," she began, her voice colder than she intended. "We need to talk. I'm not happy. I've met someone else." The book dropped from Mark's hands. The color drained from his face as he stared at her, his expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. What are you saying, Sarah?" he stammered. The words tumbled out of her, a cold, rehearsed confession. She told him about David, about the affair, about her desire for a new life. She didn't spare him the details, perhaps as a way to sever the tie cleanly, to burn the bridge so thoroughly there was no turning back. Each word was a blow, and with each one Mark seemed to shrink, the light in his eyes dimming until it was just a flicker of profound hurt. He didn't yell. He didn't scream. He just sat there, broken. "I thought we were happy," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I gave you everything." Sarah scoffed, a bitter sound. "You gave me a boring, predictable life, Mark. I want more than that." Her friends and even her own family were shocked, but they rallied around her, buying into her narrative of a woman escaping a stifling marriage. They looked at Mark with pity, this quiet, unassuming man, and thought, "He'll never recover from this." They saw him as weak, a man destined to be a sad footnote in Sarah's exciting new chapter. The divorce was swift and brutal. Sarah, with David by her side, took the house, a significant portion of their savings, and her freedom. She left Mark with a small apartment and a shattered heart. The first few months were a living nightmare for him. He moved through his days in a fog of grief and betrayal. The silence in his small apartment was deafening, a constant reminder of everything he had lost. His friends tried to cheer him up, but their pitying glances only made him feel worse. He felt like a failure, a cliché of the wronged husband. He'd see Sarah's posts on social media, exotic vacations with David, fancy dinners, beaming smiles. It felt like she was flaunting her new life, a life built on the ruins of his. One rainy Tuesday, staring at his reflection in the window, Mark saw a stranger, a hollowed-out man he didn't recognize. And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't a dramatic epiphany, but a quiet, firm decision. He was done being the victim. He was done letting Sarah's actions define his existence. He refused to become the sad, pathetic man everyone expected him to be. He would not just move on, he would rebuild. He would create a life so good that the memory of his past pain would be nothing but a distant echo. The very next day, Mark started making changes. He'd always had a passion for woodworking, a hobby he'd let slide over the years. He cleared out a corner of his small apartment and started creating again. His hands, once idle, were now busy sanding, carving, and shaping beautiful pieces of furniture. The focus it required quieted the noise in his head. It was meditative, a way to channel his pain into something tangible and beautiful. He also started going to the gym, not for revenge, but for himself. The physical exertion was a release, and with every pound he lifted, he felt a piece of his emotional burden lighten. He reconnected with old friends, the ones who saw him as Mark, not as Sarah's ex-husband. He started saying yes to invitations he would have once declined. Hiking trips, weekend getaways, even a local book club. He was rediscovering the man he was before his identity became intertwined with someone else's. One evening, a friend dragged him to a community event. That's where he met Emily. She was a landscape architect with a warm smile and eyes that sparkled with intelligence and kindness. They started talking about books, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. For the first time in a long time, Mark felt a genuine connection, a spark that had nothing to do with reigniting an old flame, but everything to do with kindling a new one. His small woodworking hobby began to gain attention. He posted a few of his creations online, and the response was overwhelming. Orders started trickling in, then pouring in. He took a leap of faith, quit his library job, and poured all his energy into his newfound business, Mark's Woodcrafts. His unique designs and meticulous craftsmanship set him apart. Within 2 years, he had a bustling workshop, a team of employees, and a reputation as one of the finest artisans in the region. He was successful, confident, and genuinely happy. His life with Emily was filled with laughter, mutual respect, and shared adventures. He had built a life that was richer and more fulfilling than he could have ever imagined. Meanwhile, Sarah's world was beginning to crumble. The initial thrill of her relationship with David had faded, replaced by the mundane reality of life. David's ambition, which she had once found so attractive, now revealed itself as a ruthless, self-serving drive. He was often late, emotionally distant, and more interested in climbing the corporate ladder than in building a life with her. The exotic vacations were replaced with arguments over finances. The fancy dinners became tense, silent affairs. The perfect life she had flaunted on social media was a carefully constructed illusion. One day, out of a morbid curiosity she couldn't explain, she looked up Mark. She expected to find a sad, lonely man. Instead, she found the website for Mark's Woodcrafts. She saw photos of him, not broken, but strong and vibrant. She saw articles praising his work, his success. She saw pictures of him with Emily, their faces radiating a genuine joy that she and David had never shared. A bitter wave of regret washed over her. It was a cold, sickening realization. She had thrown away a diamond for a piece of glittering glass. The man she had dismissed as boring and predictable had an inner strength and passion she had never bothered to see. He had built a magnificent life, not in spite of her, but for himself. She had thought his world revolved around her, but he had proven that he was his own sun. Driven by a desperate, misguided hope, she found his new address, the beautiful home he shared with Emily. She showed up unannounced, her heart pounding. When Mark opened the door, he looked at her not with anger or pity, but with a calm indifference. He was polite, but distant. "Sarah," he said, his voice even, "what are you doing here?" "Mark, I made a mistake," she began, tears welling in her eyes. "A terrible mistake. I miss you. I miss us." Mark listened, his expression unreadable. For a moment she allowed herself to hope. Then Emily appeared at the door, placing a gentle hand on Mark's arm. She smiled kindly at Sarah, a smile that held no malice, only a quiet confidence. Mark looked from Sarah's tear-streaked face to Emily's loving one. "Sarah," he said softly but firmly, "that life is over. I've moved on. I'm happy now. I think it's time you tried to do the same." He closed the door, not with a slam, but with a quiet finality. As Sarah stood on the doorstep, the sound of laughter from inside the house reached her ears. It was the sound of a happy home, a home she had willingly given up. In that moment, she understood the true depth of her loss. She hadn't just lost a husband. She had lost the chance to be with a truly remarkable man. Her worst regret wasn't just leaving him. It was the crushing realization that he had never needed her to be happy. And his new life, the one he built from the ashes she had left behind, was a life she could now only dream of. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end.